Good day, beautiful people. Today, we will take a look at your pH and your chemistry of respiration. But then, before anything else, please go over again your Arrhenius concept of acids and bases, your Bronsted-Lowry definition of acids and bases, and the Lewis definition of acid and your bases. Again, before we move on, please go back, you check the following definitions. Just a quick one. When you say acids, these are proton donors. When you say bases, these are proton acceptor. And by the way, your protons, these are subatomic particles. Again, your protons, these are subatomic particles. And please note, they carry a positive charge. Your protons, they carry a positive charge. And aside from that, they define the identity of a chemical element. Your protons define the identity of a chemical element. And then you have here your weak base. Your weak base is an organic acid or any compound that contains a carboxyl group. Uric acid is an organic acid or any compound that contains a carboxyl group. It contains COOH, okay? It contains your COOH. And please note, this weak acid partially dissociates in water. It partially dissociates in water. Please note when you say partially dissociates in water, the acid is undissociate or it does not fully dissociate. Okay, it does not fully dissociate. And its ions, the ions of this one, the ions of this weak acid is present at the same time. Present, of course, in the solution. And please note that your weak acids, they are essential for buffering because they partially dissociate. Okay, they partially dissociate. And then you have your weak base. Okay, your weak base, it has a small measurable ability to combine with hydrogen ions. And please note, it has a small but measurable ability, meaning it does not completely take up or it does not completely combine or it does not completely take up all the available ions in or hydrogen ions in the solution. With that being said, because they cannot take up all the available hydrogen ions, these weak bases, they are useful in buffers because they can accept some only. They do not accept all, okay? They can only accept some hydrogen ions without causing pH changes or without causing large changes in the pH. Okay, without causing large changes in. And then you have your conjugate base. Your conjugate base is the deprotonated product of your dissociation reaction. Or meaning this is the product that remains after a weak acid has donated a hydrogen ion. Again, your conjugate base, it is the product or it is the compound that remains after a weak base has donated, or sorry, after a weak acid, okay, your conjugate base is the product or the compound or the substance that remains after a weak acid has donated a hydrogen ion. Okay, that is for your conjugate base. That is for your conjugate. So your conjugate base can accept hydrogen. Sorry, look at your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation here. Please note that your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, this one is an equation that is useful for estimating the pH of a buffer solution and finding the equilibrium pH in acid-base reaction. And then, yes, it is utilized or it can be utilized to determine the amount of acid and conjugate base that is needed to make a buffer solution of a certain pH. And yes, your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, it connects the measurable pH of a solution with the pKa of the acid. You have here your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Please note that this one relates the pH of a buffer solution to the pKa of the weak acid and the ratio of the concentrations of the conjugate base and the weak acid. Of course, this is the weak acid. The HA here is the weak acid, and this one is your conjugate base. Anyway, yes, let's take a look at this equation first. The pH, of course, that is the pH of the buffer solution. The pKa here, that is the negative logarithm of the acid dissociation constant of the weak acid. Okay, that is the logarithm, negative, that is the negative logarithm of the acid dissociation constant of the weak acid. And your A here, that is the concentration of the conjugate base. And your HA here is the concentration of the weak acid accordingly. So let's take a look at this equation. This equation below. Please note that this is the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation used for bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer in the blood. Again, this equation here is the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation used for bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer in the blood. Where, please note, okay, where the pKa, okay, where the pKa of H2CO3 or carbonic acid, again, where the pKa of carbonic acid is this one, 6.1. Okay, 6.1, this is the acid dissociation constant of carbonic acid. And please note that this one, your HCO3 here, this is the concentration of your bicarbonate in the blood. And please note that this is actually the concentration of dissolved carbon dioxide. Actually here, the concentration of dissolved carbon dioxide or carbonic acid. Okay, this is the concentration of the dissolved carbon dioxide or carbonic acid. While this one, your 0.03 times PCO2, this is what we call this. Your 0.03 here is the solubility coefficient of carbon dioxide, whereas your PCO2 is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide accordingly. This one will give you actually this formula. The 0.03 times PCO2 will give you the dissolved concentration of carbon dioxide that you will input here. Okay? Just to give you an idea, okay, because we will be needing this one. I will what you call this, mention it later naman. Just to give you an idea, please note that as for the normal values of your bicarbonate, it is at 24 millimoles per liter, okay? And then for your PCO2, that is 40 mmHg, and then the normal ratio of your bicarbonate to carbonic acid is 20 is to 1. Okay, these ones will give you the normal blood pH of 0.40. It will give you the normal blood pH of 0, I mean of 7, of 7.40. Of course, we have the range. It's 7.35 to 7.45. Please note that this equation, okay, this equation is utilized by clinicians to understand acid-base disorders. Because if partial carbon dioxide or partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases, okay, if partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases, there will be a decrease in the pH. The pH will fall. Okay, it will become acidic. If, okay, as well as if the pressure of, I mean, sorry, if bicarbonate decreases, okay, the pH will decrease also. Okay, so if there is a rise, if there is an increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, if there is in increase, okay, if there is an increase in the partial pressure of your carbon dioxide, the pH will fall or will decrease. If there is a decrease in the concentrations of your bicarbonate, sorry, if there is a decrease in the concentrations of bicarbonate, the pH will decrease also. And yes, okay, giving you acidosis. For alkalosis, it will be the other way around. For alkalosis, it will be the other way around. Decrease for PCO2 and increase for bicarbonate. A decrease in one pH unit, it represents a tenfold increase in hydrogen ion concentration. Okay, in case of Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, please note that a decrease in one pH unit represents a tenfold increase in hydrogen ion concentration. Anyway, let's take a look at this one. Your respiration, that is the exchange of gases between the outside air and the body. Okay, so let's take a look at this composition of inspired air and expired air. When you see inspired, that is the air that you breathe in. When you see expired, that is the air that you release or that you breathe out. Okay, that you exhaled, something like that. Anyway, okay, okay, so let's take a look at this inspired air. You have, for the oxygen content, it is 20.95%. Okay, for the oxygen content, it's 20.95%. For the carbon dioxide, okay, you have 0.04. Okay, 0.04%. And the nitrogen level or the nitrogen content of your inspired air is 79. Let's take a look at the expired air. You have 16.20 oxygen and carbon dioxide you have 44.38. The nitrogen level is the same. And you have the following difference. Please note that this difference in oxygen, okay, why is there a difference? Please note that the body, okay, the body takes up 5%, about 5% oxygen. Okay, the body takes up about 5% oxygen and gives up 4% carbon dioxide. Okay, saan po ito napunta? This 4.92% that is taken up by the body, they are utilized for biological oxidation as well as for the formation of water. Of course, in short, this difference here, it is utilized by the body. It is utilized by the body because you need oxygen in order to survive. Okay? Whereas this one, of course, this 4.34. Okay, of course, these are metabolic. These are waste, okay, carbon dioxide or waste products coming from the body. Your nitrogen, okay, there is no difference. Why? The nitrogen remains the same because the nitrogen is supplied by the nitrogenous organic compounds. Okay, and so inside you, you have nitrogenous organic compounds. That is why you do not really need much. Okay, you do not really need nitrogen because present inside you, you have your nitrogenous organic compounds that will supply your nitrogen needs. Okay, so what are these nitrogenous organic compounds? Example, of course, you have your proteins. Okay, if you try to go back, okay, your composition of your what you call this of your proteins, you have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Aside from that, you have amino acids and others. That is why there is no difference for this. Okay, so you have here types of your respiration. Accordingly, you have your internal and external respiration. Okay, internal and external respiration. Please note when you say external, okay, when you say external respiration, this is the exchange of gases that happens in the lungs. Okay, exchange of gases that happens in the lungs. Wherein oxygen from the air moves into the blood. Okay, in this one, oxygen from the air that you breathe in moves into the blood, and carbon dioxide from the blood. Please note, carbon dioxide is a waste product. Okay, carbon dioxide from the blood moves out. Okay, yeah, moves out to be exhaled. Okay, that is for your external respiration. And this external respiration, it occurs or it happens between the alveoli and the blood in the surrounding capillaries. And then you have your internal respiration. Your internal respiration, of course, this happens or this occurs in the tissues. This is the exchange of gases that happens in your tissues accordingly. So how is it done? Your oxygen coming from the blood, okay, your oxygen that is carried by your blood will enter the cells so that they can be used for energy production. Again, the oxygen coming from the blood, okay, the oxygen will leave the blood and will enter your peripheral cells. And yes, this oxygen will enter the cells so that they will utilize it for energy production. Okay, and yes, that is you call that as I mean the use of oxygen to for the use of oxygen for energy production is the cellular respiration. Anyway, what happens with the carbon dioxide in internal respiration? Carbon dioxide that is produced by your peripheral cells will enter the blood to be carried to the lungs for external or for excretion, to breathe out. Okay, so yes, in internal respiration, you deliver oxygen to your peripheral cells. Okay, and in return, you pick up carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide coming from your peripheral cells will go naman to your red cells. Okay, will go to your red cells. Whereas in your external respiration, there is actually the loading of oxygen, getting of oxygen into the blood, okay, and removing carbon dioxide from the blood, okay, or from your body. Okay, that is for your internal and external. Please note that the gas exchange in both external respiration and internal respiration occurs via diffusion. Okay, again, The gas exchange between the internal and external respiration, between the external respiration and internal respiration, occurs via diffusion accordingly. And please note that when you say diffusion, this is the movement of molecules from an area of higher concentration. Again, your diffusion, this is the movement of molecules from an area of higher concentration or from an area of higher pressure to an area of lower concentration or lower pressure accordingly. So please note that oxygen and carbon dioxide, they move passively across membranes down to their pressure gradients. Again, your oxygen and carbon dioxide, they move passively across gradients down their pressure, across membranes down their pressure gradients. And please note that there is no energy required for the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide accordingly. Of course, the tension, this is the pressure that is exerted by a gas in a solution. Okay, and your gas tension, that is the pressure that a particular gas exerts when it is dissolved in a liquid. Okay, like let's say, for example, when a carbon dioxide or when a gas is dissolved in a blood or when a gas is dissolved in a tissue fluid accordingly. And yes, the tension is measured by millimeters of mercury. Okay, it is measured by millimeters of mercury. When you say higher tension, there is higher concentration of that gas in a solution. So let's say, for example, you have high oxygen tension in the blood. It means that there is a high concentration of oxygen in the blood. Okay? And please note that gases, they diffuse from regions of higher concentration to regions of, or sorry, gas, okay, your gases, okay, just change the term concentration to tension, okay? Gases diffuse from regions of higher concentration or higher tension to regions of lower tension. Of course, okay, that is to maintain somewhat homeostasis. Anyway, let's take a look at the oxygen tension in different parts of the body. Okay, your oxygen tension in different parts of the body. Okay, for your inspired air, okay, the oxygen tension, okay, is 159 to 160 millimeters of mercury. Okay, this is the highest pure atmospheric air, about 21% of oxygen. Okay, and then you have your alveolar air. It is 180 millimeters of mercury. Please note that it is slightly lower. Okay, it's slightly lower comparing it with inspired air because some oxygen has already been absorbed and mixed with residual air here. And then you have the venous blood. You have 40 to 50 millimeters of mercury. Okay, your venous blood, you have 40 to 50 millimeters of mercury. Because of course, okay, it has given up much of its oxygen content. Okay, venous blood. Please note that when you say uh, venous blood, they are the oxygenated blood. Okay, there is already low oxygen tension in the venous or in the veins. Okay, and your arterial blood, it is 100 millimeters of mercury. Okay, blood leaving the lungs is almost fully oxygenated somewhat. Okay, and then in the tissues, you have 20 to 50 millimeters of mercury. Okay, this is actually the lowest here because the cells are constantly using oxygen, causing the tension low. Okay, your tissues or your cells, your peripheral tissues, they are constantly using oxygen. Okay, they do not store oxygen. Okay, appear conditions affecting the diffusion of oxygen from the alveolar tissues. Number one is the size of the epithelial wall or the thickness of the alveolar capillary membrane. Okay, this is actually the barrier, your alveolar capillary membrane. That is actually the barrier between air and the blood. And the membrane, this alveolar capillary membrane, is actually thin. It's very thin. Normally, it's very thin. Okay, it's very thin. So, if, okay, if the wall or if the membrane is thinner, there is faster and easier diffusion of oxygen. But then if it's thick, okay, if it's thick, let's say for example, in cases of fibrosis, in cases of pneumonia, okay, if there is a thick epithelial wall in the what they call this in the alveoli, again, if there is a thick epithelial wall in the alveoli, like in cases of pneumonia, okay, there is a slower diffusion. Okay, slower diffusion of oxygen going to the blood and less oxygen will enter the blood. Okay, that is for the size of the epithelial wall. Okay, that is why okay, that is why please note that the thickness of the epithelial wall is very thin. Okay, that the epithelial wall is very thin. Okay, manipis po siya. Okay, and then you have the speed of blood flow. Okay, the speed of blood flow or the rate of blood flow through the pulmonary capillaries. The rate of blood flow through the pulmonary capillaries. Please note that the blood, okay, the blood normally spends about approximately 0.75 seconds in the capillary. Okay, again, the blood spends approximately 0.75 seconds in the capillary. Okay, in the pulmonary capillaries, please note, in the pulmonary capillaries, this time is enough for oxygen to fully equilibrate. Okay, so yes, if let's take a look at the speed, okay, if the speed of blood flow is slower, if the speed of blood flow is smaller, I mean slower again, if the speed of blood flow is slower, there is more time for the oxygen to diffuse. Okay, there is more time for oxygen to diffuse. Okay, so meaning there is better oxygenation if it's slower. But then if it's faster, okay, like let's say if it's faster, okay, during in cases of uh running or exercise, something like that. Okay, you have an increased blood flow, increased heart rate, increased blood flow during exercise, during running, somewhat. Okay, so if there is a faster blood flow, there is a less available time. There is a less available time for oxygen to diffuse to the blood. Okay, there is a less available time for oxygen to diffuse to the blood. And if that happens, there is a what they call this, there is a limit or what they call this, there is an impairment with the diffusion of oxygen. Okay, that explains maybe that, okay, bumibilis na ang paghinga mo. Anyway, and then you have what you call this, the affinity of your oxygen to your the affinity of oxygen to your hemoglobin. Okay, so yes, please note that when you say affinity, that is how strong. It means how strong your hemoglobin will bind to oxygen. Okay, please note that once the oxygen diffuses into red cells, it binds with hemoglobin because hemoglobin, this is actually your oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, what is present? If you were asked, what is present in the red cell that makes it capable to carry oxygen? It is actually hemoglobin. The hemoglobin, okay, is the oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, please note that once oxygen diffuses in the red cells, okay, it binds with the hemoglobin. Okay, that is why, okay, the dissolved oxygen tension in the plasma is low, maintaining, of course, the pressure gradient that drives more oxygen into the blood. Okay, so what happens here? If there is a higher affinity, if there is a higher affinity of oxygen to hemoglobin, okay, it will keep, okay, if there is a higher affinity, it will keep the plasma PO2 lower, okay, and will continue the diffusion. Control of respiration here. Actually, okay, the rate and depth of respiration is controlled by the carbon dioxide. This is actually your CO2 is actually the most important factor that regulates both the rate and depth of breathing. Okay, it is the most important factor that regulates the rate and depth of breathing. Okay, why is this? Please note that when the levels of carbon dioxide in the blood increases, okay, when the levels of carbon dioxide in the blood increases, you have special sensors, you have chemoreceptors. Okay, you have chemoreceptors that will detect the rise. Okay, you have chemoreceptors present in your body that will detect the rise of carbon dioxide in the blood. And what will these chemoreceptors do? Okay, these chemo will send a signal to the brain. These chemoreceptors, they are sensors, of course. They are somewhat nerve endings. They will, what you call this, they will send signals to your brain. Okay, they will send signals to your brain, and please note that your brain's respiratory center will respond by, okay, so if there is an increased carbon dioxide in the blood, your body will, or the brain respiratory center will respond by, it will increase the rate of breathing. Okay, meaning you will hyperventilate. Okay, you will breathe faster. Okay, you need to excrete. Okay, you need to eliminate more carbon dioxide, something like that. And increasing the depth of breathing. Increase the depth of breathing. You take deeper breaths accordingly. Okay, so yes, in case of increased carbon dioxide in the blood, your body will increase pulmonary ventilation. Okay, it will increase pulmonary ventilation, or it will increase the rate of breathing and increase the depth of breathing, leading to increased pulmonary ventilation accordingly. So what does that mean? If there is an increased pulmonary ventilation, more air is removed, sorry, more air is moved in, okay? More air is moved in and out of the lungs, okay? More air is moved in and out of more carbon dioxide is exhaled and the blood carbon dioxide level will return to normal accordingly. So please note that your carbon dioxide, the body accordingly is more sensitive to changes in carbon dioxide concentrations. Okay, again, the body is more sensitive to changes in carbon dioxide concentrations than to changes in oxygen under normal conditions accordingly. Okay, so yes, it is more sensitive. So even a small rise in blood carbon dioxide, it can cause a small, I mean, it can cause a strong increase in breathing. Said earlier, an increase in carbon dioxide, okay, will cause hyperventilation to immediately eliminate carbon dioxide from the blood. But then, if there is a decrease in carbon dioxide in the blood, if there is a decrease in carbon dioxide in the blood, your body will slow down your breathing. Okay, it will slow down your breathing, and okay, your depth of breath will be shallow. Okay, your depth of breath will be shallow, leading, of course, to decreased pulmonary ventilation. So, yes, if there is a decreased carbon dioxide in the blood, what will your body do? Your body will slow your breathing and it will slow and will shallow your respiration, leading to decreased pulmonary ventilation. And the ending for this one, the ending will lead to decreased elimination of carbon dioxide, decreased elimination of carbon dioxide. Okay, of course, if there is a decreased elimination of carbon dioxide, it will allow your carbon dioxide level in the blood to rise back to normal, maintaining the pH. Please note that carbon dioxide is directly related to pH. It is directly related to blood pH level. Okay, the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is a function of your hemoglobin concentration. Please note that almost all oxygen in the blood, they are bound to hemoglobin inside the red cells. And there is only a very small amount of oxygen that is dissolved in the plasma. So, please note that the maximum amount of oxygen that the blood can carry depends mainly on how much oxygen or on how much hemoglobin is present. Again, the maximum amount of oxygen that the blood can carry depends on how much hemoglobin is present. So, the higher the hemoglobin, the higher the hemoglobin concentration, the higher the oxygen carrying capacity. Okay? The lower the hemoglobin concentration, there is a reduced, or there is a lower oxygen carrying capacity. This one is seen in cases of anemia. Okay, low hemoglobin concentration. Okay, low hemoglobin concentration seen in cases of anemia. There is a reduced ability, or there is a reduced oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, so how is this done? Your hemoglobin, okay, your hemoglobin, they form actually a reversible stable complex in which the iron remains in the ferrous state. Okay, please note that in the composition of your hemoglobin, it has a heme and it has a globin. And the heme, it has it has an iron present. Okay, the heme has an iron present. And please note that the iron present, it must stay in the ferrous form or ferrous state to bind oxygen properly. For this hemoglobin to bind the oxygen properly. Again, the iron component of the hemoglobin should stay in the ferrous state or ferrous form for it to bind oxygen properly. And please note that this binding is the binding of the binding of oxygen is reversible. Okay, so in the lungs, you have high oxygen, hemoglobin will bind to oxygen. And this hemoglobin that has that has oxygen in it, you call them as oxyhemoglobin. Okay, oxyhemoglobin. Whereas, okay, the hemoglobin that does not have oxygen in them. Okay, so let's say the hemoglobin that is present in your peripheral blood, okay, they are deoxyhemoglobin. Okay, or simply your what do you call this? Your in your blood vessels. In your arteries, okay, in your arteries, the oxygen present, I mean, the hemoglobin that is present is oxyhemoglobin. In your veins, the hemoglobin that is present, it is deoxyhemoglobin. Okay, and yes, please note, we said that hemoglobin forms a reversible stable complex, okay, or the binding of oxygen in hemoglobin is reversible. Okay, this reversible binding, please note that this one allows hemoglobin to pick up oxygen in the lungs and deliver it to your body cells. Okay, you have here the factors affecting the dissociation of hemoglobin. Number one is your low oxygen pressure. When the partial pressure of oxygen is low, like in the tissues, the hemoglobin tends to break apart. Okay, the hemoglobin tends to break apart accordingly. Of course, okay, when you say break apart, the hemoglobin releases its oxygen so that the oxygen can diffuse into the cells. Whereas in the lungs where oxygen pressure is high, okay, it's the other way around. What happens is oxygen will bind. Okay, oxygen will bind to hemoglobin tightly. So, okay, you're left with the idea that low oxygen pressure in the tissues will attract, okay, low oxygen pressure in the tissues will attract hemoglobin. I mean, will attract oxygen from your hemoglobin. Okay, another one here is high carbon dioxide pressure. Okay, please note that an increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide will decrease the hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. Okay, it will decrease the hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen. And yes, this is known actually as the Bohr's effect. Okay, please note that high carbon dioxide levels, okay, high carbon dioxide levels, okay, okay, when you have high carbon dioxide levels, there is slight acidity in the blood. Okay, this high carbon dioxide level will make it easier for the hemoglobin to release oxygen. So, if there is high carbon dioxide in the tissues, okay, and so this condition will help, okay, will help drive away or will help dissociate the oxygen from the hemoglobin. This is your oxygen dissociation curve, which shows the relationship between oxygen pressure and hemoglobin saturation. Please note that in the x-axis, okay, the what you call this, the partial pressure of oxygen is plotted here in millimeters of mercury, and in the y-axis, the percentage saturation of hemoglobin is plotted. Percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted. Okay, so let's take a look at the shape of the curve. Okay, the normal actually is a sigmoid or S shape. The normal is sigmoid or S shape. Okay, that is the normal one. Why? Because in the lungs, okay, in the lungs, please note, in the lungs, you have high oxygen pressure. Okay, in the lungs, you have high oxygen pressure. If you remember earlier, we said that you have 100 millimeters of mercury for the tension. Okay, so in the lungs, the hemoglobin is almost fully saturated. Okay, in the lungs, the hemoglobin is almost fully saturated. And in the tissues, okay, in the tissues, the hemoglobin releases oxygen readily, Okay, in the tissues, the hemoglobin releases oxygen more readily because, of course, in the tissues, there is lower oxygen pressure. And please note that this one again, this is the normal one. Okay, this is the normal one. Okay, so there is what you call as left shift here, left shift or shift to the left. Okay, this one, shift to the left. Please note, you actually have a higher oxygen affinity. Or yes, your hemoglobin holds your hemoglobin holds onto the oxygen tightly. Okay, there is a greater affinity. Okay, if there is a greater affinity, there is the hemoglobin, there is a harder okay, the hemoglobin, it is hard for the hemoglobin to release the oxygen in the tissues. Okay, and probably this one is caused by low carbon dioxide levels. Okay, there is you have your right shift or shift to the right here. Okay, shift to the right, there is a lower affinity. There is a lower affinity for left shift or shift to the left, there is a higher affinity to oxygen. Okay, for this one, there is a lower affinity, meaning the hemoglobin releases the oxygen more readily. Okay, and yes, more oxygen is delivered to the tissues. So this one, okay, can be caused by high concentrations of carbon dioxide. Okay, that is for your hemoglobin dissociation curve. Just to give you an idea that we have oxygen or hemoglobin dissociation curve. Okay, you have here factors affecting the dissociation of oxyhemoglobin. Okay, number one is low pH. Okay, low pH. Actually, low blood pH, actually. There are acids, okay, other than carbonic acid. Please note that a decrease in pH will increase the dissociation of hemoglobin. Okay, a decrease in pH will increase the dissociation of hemoglobin, meaning it will go to shift to the right. Okay, for the green one. Okay, you have a shift to the right. Okay, please note, acids other than carbonic acid, they have this effect. Okay, and again, that is your Bohr effect. Okay, and then rise in temperature. Please note, an increase in temperature will increase the dissociation of hemoglobin. Okay, warmer conditions make hemoglobin hold oxygen less tightly. Okay, again, warmer conditions make the hemoglobin hold oxygen less tightly. Okay, and yes, during exercise, okay, medyo umiinit ang katawan mo. Okay, your active muscles generate heat, okay, and so causing an increase in the temperature. And yes, okay, if that happens, rise in temperature, more oxygen is unloaded. So somewhat this is yes, if the rise in temperature shift to the left. I mean, yes, shift to the right. Okay. And then you have presence of electrolytes accordingly. Presence of electrolytes at low PO2, hemoglobin releases oxygen more readily when electrolytes are present than it does in a pure solution. Okay, so please note that electrolytes in the blood, like of course you have your sodium, your calcium chloride, and the rest of your electrolytes, okay, these electrolytes help promote oxygen. Okay, they help promote oxygen unloading to the tissue. Please note that your carbon dioxide is not transported as carbon dioxide as is. Okay, there are three forms of carbon dioxide that is carried in the blood. Okay, number one is carbonic acid, and then carbamino compound, this carbamino compound, and as bicarbonate. Okay, as bicarbonate. Please note that as carbonic acid, okay, H2CO3, okay, a small amount actually of carbon dioxide dissolves in plasma and it reacts with water to form carbonic acid. Again, okay, a small amount of carbon dioxide dissolves in plasma and it reacts with water to form carbonic acid. Okay, and yes, this form actually is important. This one is important because any change in its concentration causes a marked change in blood pH. It causes a marked change in blood pH. Okay, sooner we will take a look at the ratio of carbonic acid to bicarbonate. Okay. And please note that this carbonic acid here is carefully regulated to keep the pH stable, to keep the pH at 7.35 to 7.45. And then another one is carbamino compounds is what we said earlier. Please note that carbon dioxide they bind, yes, your carbon dioxide, they bind directly to proteins, especially hemoglobin. Okay, your carbon dioxide, again, they bind directly to proteins, especially hemoglobin. Okay, the free amino groups of your proteins, okay, the free amino groups, the NH2, okay, the free amino groups of your proteins, they react with carbon dioxide to form carbamino compounds. Okay, and so the main carbamino compounds, of course, you have your carbamino hemoglobin. Okay, and yes, this one is a reversible reaction. Okay, it is a reversible reaction. Actually, the difference between the carbon dioxide content of arterial, okay, the difference in the carbon dioxide content between arterial and the venous blood is partly due to the difference in the amount of carbamino compounds that are formed. Of course, you have more carbamino compounds that are formed in the venous blood comparing it with your oxy, I mean with your blood in the arteries. Okay, and yes, as a bicarbonate. Okay, this is accordingly the major form. Okay, and so your carbon dioxide is transported, or yes, it is transported in the form of bicarbonate. Okay, most of your carbon dioxide, approximately 70 to 75%, they are transported as bicarbonate. They are transported as bicarbonate. How? Okay, and so there is actually an enzyme that causes the formation of this one. So how is this? How does this happen? Okay, your carbon dioxide enters the red cell. Okay, carbon dioxide will enter the red cell, and there is this enzyme carbonic anhydrase which converts carbon dioxide and water into carbonic acid. Okay, yes. Carbon dioxide plus water, okay, will produce carbonic acid. CO2 plus H2O will give you H2CO3. Okay, that is carbonic acid. And yes, okay, right after conversion, this carbonic acid quickly dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. It quickly dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. And this bicarbonate leaves the red cell and okay, it leaves the red cell it will go to the plasma in exchange for chloride ions. Okay. And so, yes, that is one way. Those are the three ways wherein carbon dioxide is transport. Okay, let's take a look at the effects of carbon dioxide in the blood. Okay, earlier we said that your carbon dioxide can be transported in the form of carbonic acid and it can be transported in the form of bicarbonate. To maintain, okay, to maintain the pH 7.4 7.4. Okay, to maintain the pH 7.4, okay, to maintain the pH 7.4 or 7.35 to 7.45, the ratio of bicarbonate to carbonic acid must be approximately 20 is to 1. Okay, again, to maintain the normal blood pH, the ratio of bicarbonate to carbonic acid must be maintained at this 120 is to 1. And please note that this relationship, actually, this 20 is to 1 relationship between bicarbonate and carbonic acid comes from your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Okay, it comes from your Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, wherein uh, at this ratio, at 20 is to 1 ratio, the blood pH stays around the normal, around 7.45 to 7.35 to 7.45. Okay, and please note, any change, any disturbances, or any alteration in this ratio will disturb the acid-base balance. Okay, it will disturb the acid-base balance, or it will disturb the normal blood pH. So, as what I've said earlier, if the ratio, okay, if the ratio falls, okay, if the ratio falls, okay, meaning there is more bicarbonate, sorry, if the ratio falls, meaning there is more carbonic acid or less bicarbonate, the blood becomes acidic. If the ratio, if the ratio increases, okay, or yes, if the ratio increases, there is less bicarbonate or there is less carbonic acid or there is more bicarbonate, the blood becomes alkaline. Okay, and please note that your tissues, of course, the tissues produce carbon dioxide. Okay, and so right after what we call this, right after internal respiration, okay, right after internal respiration, the blood leaving the tissues, okay, contains more carbon dioxide, or the venous blood, the blood is present in the veins, they contain more carbon dioxide than the blood that is present in the arteries and in the lungs. Okay, and please note that the extra, the extra carbon dioxide is carried mainly as bicarbonate and as carbamino compound and a small amount of dissolved carbonic acid. Okay, yan po yun. And please note, even though the venous blood has more carbon dioxide present, okay, even though the venous blood has more carbon dioxide present, its pH is only slightly more acidic than the arterial blood at 0.01 to 0.03 units. Let's take a look at your buffers. Please note that your buffers, they help maintain a relatively constant hydrogen ion concentration. And your bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer system, this is actually the most important buffer system in the blood for controlling pH. Okay, so let's take a look at the mechanism. Number one is, first actually is your carbonic acid. The carbonic acid dissociates into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, the carbonic acid dissociates into carbon dioxide and water, allowing carbon dioxide to be eliminated by the lungs and hydrogen as water. Okay, so carbonic acid is broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so the carbon dioxide will be eliminated, it will be exhaled, and the hydrogen, okay, the hydrogen component can be dealt with as water. Okay, and so yes, okay, it can be dealt with as water. This system, please note, okay, this bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer system will somewhat allow the body to remove excess acid by simply breathing out more carbon dioxide. Okay, please note that changes in carbon dioxide concentration modifies the ventilation or respiratory rate. Okay, if carbon dioxide levels in the blood rises, the blood becomes more acidic. Okay, again, please note, pakitandaan po that an increase in carbon dioxide, it is equal to a decrease in blood pH. Okay, please don't forget that. So, if there is an increase levels of carbon dioxide in the blood becomes more acidic. And your body, what will it do? It needs to eliminate the carbon dioxide. It needs to eliminate the carbon dioxide, causing a breathing rate that is fast and a breathing depth that is uh, deep. Okay, so the breathing rate and the depth is increased. However, if the carbon dioxide levels fall, okay, if the carbon dioxide levels fall, then the blood becomes uh the blood becomes less acidic. Okay, when you say less acidic, it goes closer to the normal pH. Okay, if the levels of carbon dioxide levels fall, okay, the blood becomes less acidic or it somewhat returns to normal, the breathing will slow down. Please note that this portion actually, this respiration or ventilation, no, okay, this respiration and ventilation, this respiratory rate or ventilation rate actually is a rapid way for the respiratory system to adjust blood pH by controlling how much carbon dioxide is removed. Okay, and yes, you have your bicarbonate. Your bicarbonate concentration can be changed by the kidneys. Okay, this is again a part of your bicarbonate carbonic acid buffer system. Okay, the bicarbonate concentration is controlled by the kidneys. Okay, the kidneys control the concentration of bicarbonate in the blood. What your kidneys can do, they can reabsorb more bicarbonate if the blood is acidic. Okay, please note, the kidneys can reabsorb more bicarbonate if the blood is acidic and excrete more bicarbonate when the blood is alkaline. Okay, so with that, please note that carbon dioxide, pakitandaan po, just a simple one. Okay, CO2, carbon dioxide, is somewhat acidic and bicarbonate is somewhat alkaline. Okay, carbon dioxide is acidic and bicarbonate is somewhat alkaline. Please. And the buffering capacity of your proteins. Okay, please note that your plasma proteins and intracellular proteins, they have a net negative charge. They have a net negative charge. And okay, because of this negative charge, they have the ability to bind hydrogen ions. Okay, this net negative charge that is present, that is less present in your proteins, it gives them the ability to bind with hydrogen ions. Okay, so when hydrogen ions is added, okay, yes, when hydrogen ions is added, okay, or when there is an increase in hydrogen ions, okay, it will become the solution or yes, the solution will become acidic. Okay, or let's say in the blood, if there is an increase in hydrogen ions in the blood, it becomes acidic. Okay, if there is an increased hydrogen ions in the blood, it becomes acidic. So the protein, they can buffer that. They can take up the excess hydrogen ions. They can take up the excess hydrogen ions and will somewhat help limit the decrease in the pH. Because again, we need to maintain, pakitandaan po that what we are trying to do here is we need to maintain the normal blood pH at 7.35 to 7.45. So, if there is an increased hydrogen ions in the blood, okay, increased hydrogen ions in the blood is equal to acidosis or acidic. What will your body do? The proteins will take up the excess hydrogen ions. Okay? To somewhat help limit the decrease in the pH. If, okay, if hydrogen ions is removed or if there is a low hydrogen ion, okay, if there is low hydrogen ion in the blood, okay, that is alkalosis. What will your body do? Or what will your proteins do? They will release hydrogen ions. They will release hydrogen ions. Okay? To help decrease or to help maintain the pH, to prevent, okay, the further increase of the blood pH. Okay, please note that proteins, they are important buffers also. They're important buffers. And then you have your phosphate buffer system. You have your phosphate buffer system. Okay, the system is, yes, it consists of your hydrogen phosphate and your dihydrogen phosphate. Of course, your hydrogen phosphate, that is the base form. Okay, this one, your hydrogen phosphate, this is the base form, the alkaline form, and then this dihydrogen phosphate, this is the acid form. Okay, that is the acid form. Of course, this phosphate buffer system, they accept, okay, they accept or release hydrogen ions according to the need. Okay, they accept or release hydrogen ions according to the need. Okay, so in the kidneys, okay, in the kidneys, your phosphate buffer system here, they help in the exchange of sodium ions in the urine filtrate. Okay, and the phosphate buffer will allow the kidney to excrete excess hydrogen ions while conserving sodium and generating bicarbonate. Okay, and then of course the role of hemoglobin. Okay, the role of hemoglobin. As what we said earlier, this one transports oxygen. And yes, it also transports carbon dioxide in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. So when the hemoglobin binds or releases oxygen, its ability to bind hydrogen and carbon dioxide changes. And please note that the oxyhemoglobin is better than a better buffer. Okay, the oxyhemoglobin is a better buffer than your oxyhemoglobin because the oxyhemoglobin helps in the transport of carbon dioxide, okay, in the form again of your carbamino, in the form of your carbamino hemoglobin. Okay. Okay, so yes, please don't forget again the normal blood pH. Please write it down. The normal blood pH is 7.35 to 7.45. Okay, that is the normal blood pH. Okay, that is the normal blood pH. Okay, blood pH decreases when, number one, the level of acidic compound rises in the body. So what are these acidic compounds? You have carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Okay, it happens, the increase may be because of increased intake or decreased elimination. Okay, increased intake, you are taking more, or your body fails to eliminate them. Okay. And then the level of basic compounds, I mean, the blood pH decreases when the level of basic compounds in the body false. Because again, please note, okay, there should be a balance. Okay? Pakitandaan po that the 20:1 ratio should be maintained. Okay? Anyway, okay, blood pH decreases when the level of basic compounds in the body falls. One good example of basic compound in the body, bicarbonate. Okay, bicarbonate is a basic compound. If bicarbonate decreases, then the blood pH will decrease. Okay, anyway, blood pH will increase when the level of acid in the body decreases, or when the level of the bi when the level of bicarbonate in the body increases. The role of the lungs. The lungs, they release carbon dioxide. Okay, they release carbon dioxide. And again, as what we said earlier, your carbon dioxide, they are mildly acidic and they are a waste product of the metabolism of oxygen. And yes, the blood carries carbon dioxide from the peripheral tissues going to the lungs. And please note, as carbon dioxide accumulates in the blood pH decreases, or the pH of the blood decreases, because again, okay, more acidic components will accumulate, okay, it will become acidic. And please note, the brain regulates the amount of carbon dioxide that is exhaled by controlling the speed and depth of breathing. Please note, we said earlier that there are chemoreceptors. There are sensory receptors that detect the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood. And if it detects there is a high concentrations of carbon dioxide in the blood, your brain will regulate that. Your brain will, if it is increased, if there is increased amount, your brain will uh what you call this, control, or yes, it will speed up the breathing. Okay, and please note that the role of lungs is an immediate response of your kidneys. Okay, the role of your kidneys. Please note again that there are actually two organs. There are actually two organs that are responsible in, okay, that are mainly responsible in maintaining the blood pH. Number one, you have your lungs, which has an immediate response, and then number two, you have your kidneys. Your kidneys, their role is to excrete acids or bases. Okay, to excrete acids or bases. And yes, they can excrete hydrogen ions, or they can excrete bicarbonate ions. Okay, they have the ability to alter the amount of acid or bases that is excreted. And comparing this one with the role of your lungs, this role of kidneys in acid-base balance, it is slower, but the response is long term. And okay, there is what you call as compensation here. Okay, when you say compensation, is it compensated? Meaning, does the process return it to normal, to the normal blood pH? Okay, something like that. For complete your kidneys, okay, has the ability to completely compensate, or to completely return it to normal, to completely return the pH to normal. Take a look at your normal ranges here. Your pH, the normal range is 7.35 to 7.45. Okay, it determines the overall pH. It determines the overall pH, if that is acidosis or alkalosis. And then you have your PO2, your oxygen tension. It is 80 to 100 millimeters of mercury. For your carbon dioxide pressure, you have 35 to 45 millimeters of mercury, and your bicarbonate, it is 22 to 26 milliequivalent per liter. Those are your normal ranges. Your acid-base disorders, please note that they are categorized as either acidosis or alkalosis, depending on the primary cause or the cause of imbalance or from which source. Okay? Please note that acidosis is the cause of acidemia. Acidosis is the process, and acidemia is the condition. So when you say metabolic, when you say metabolic, metabolic acidosis or metabolic alkalosis, it is caused by an imbalance in the production of acids and bases and their excretion by the kidneys. Okay, so metabolic, okay, the affected organ or the cause of imbalance is the kidneys, or the source of imbalance is the kidneys. When you say respiratory, it is caused by, or it is caused primarily by changes in carbon dioxide exhalation due to lung or breathing disorders. For respiratory, respiratory acidosis, respiratory alkalosis, the cause of imbalance is from the lungs, or the source of imbalance is the lungs. Okay? It can be metabolic acidosis, metabolic alkalosis. It can be respiratory acidosis, it can be respiratory alkalosis. Your metabolic acidosis, please note metabolic acidosis, acidosis meaning, okay, the blood pH is below the lower limit of normal. And our lower limit of normal is 7.35. So, metabolic acidosis or acidosis below 7.45. Below 7.35. Again, acidosis below 7.35. Okay? Acidosis. Okay, and metabolic. Metabolic, when we say metabolic, it is kidney related. Okay, it is kidney related, uh or bicarbonate related. So, your metabolic acidosis, it is caused by decreased bicarbonate resulting in a decreased pH. Please note, bicarbonate here is a weak base. It is base in nature. It is alkaline in nature. So, if your alkaline content decreases, what happens? If the alkaline content decreases, what happens to the pH? The pH will decrease also. Okay, the pH will decrease also, causing acidosis. Okay, so let's take a look at the causes or disease correlations of metabolic acidosis. So you have here diabetic ketoacidosis, starvation, renal dysfunction, renal tubular acidosis, and diarrhea. Okay, I will just enumerate them here. Okay, and so I will just enumerate them here. Okay, let us not take a look at the mechanism how. Okay, because okay, there is no time for us. Okay, so in metabolic acidosis, again, you have the pH is below 7.35, below the lower limit. Okay, and yes, normal, normal carbon dioxide. Okay, normal levels of carbon dioxide, and the bicarbonate levels is below your is below 22% or below 22 milliequivalent per liter. Below 22 milliequivalent per liter. And again, please note that the normal value is 22 to 26 milliequivalent per liter. Okay, again, please note that this is the basis whether, okay, it is acidosis or alkalosis. Okay, and yes, compensation. How are you going to correct this one? Okay, what organ will correct? Okay, this one. Of course, we have two organs mentioned. We mentioned two organs earlier. You have one, lungs, and then the kidneys. Since your problem here is bicarbonate by the kidneys, okay, your to correct this one, the other organ should compensate. The other organ should work. Okay, so compensation is hyperventilation by the lungs. To correct this one, to correct, okay, to correct, to make it closer or to make it normal. Okay, your body will compensate through the lungs. Hyperventilation of the lungs. Hyperventilation, you need to hyperventilation of the lungs, remove more carbon dioxide. Remove more carbon dioxide. Or meaning, bawasan mo yung acidic content. Okay? Bawasan mo yung acidic content. Okay? So, in compensated metabolic acidosis, of course, somewhat almost close, okay, to the normal value. Okay, the bicarbonate levels is still below 20, below the normal range, and the PCO2 is decreased. Okay, and so yes, looking at this, you can tell if that is compensated or not. Respiratory, respiratory acidosis. Acidosis. Okay, the problem is the lungs. Okay, there is a decreased elimination of carbon dioxide by the lungs. Okay, you are hypoventilating. Okay, you are hypoventilating. You are retaining more. You are retaining more carbon dioxide. Disease correlations or disease that causes respiratory acidosis, emphysema. Okay, pneumonia, drugs that cause hypoventilation. You have alcohol, morphine, mechanical obstruction, strangulation, of course, and congestive heart failure. Less blood is presented to the lungs. Okay, if you try to remember the factors that affect, okay, the oxygenation. Respiratory acidosis, acidosis. Okay, still you have less than, the pH is below 7.35. Okay, the pH is below 7.35. Please note the bicarbonate level is normal. Okay, it is normal, and the problem here is the carbon dioxide. And the organ is the lungs. Okay, it is above 45 millimeters of mercury. Okay, so what will your body do if this is the case? Okay, since you have two organs that we listed earlier, you have lungs and the kidneys. Okay, since the problem here is respiratory, it is the lungs, then your body will correct using, it will compensate or will correct the acid-base imbalance using the other organ. So your compensation increased renal reabsorption of bicarbonate. Again, bicarbonate is a basic compound. It is an alkaline compound. Okay, you increase the alkaline, you increase the basic compound to somewhat correct the acidosis. Okay, so in compensated metabolic acidosis, you have the following values. Okay, in compensated metabolic acidosis, you have the following values, still less than 7.35. When you say completely compensated, when you say completely compensated, the pH will totally return within the normal range. Okay, again, when you say completely compensated, the pH will totally return to the normal range. When you say partially compensated, it will somewhat go close. Okay, but it will not go to the normal. Partial lang. Anyway, okay, so you have here compensated metabolic acidosis, or sorry, compensated respiratory acidosis. Okay, compensated respiratory acidosis, you have pH of less than 7.35, somewhat near 7 point, the normal value. And then bicarbonate, that is increased. Okay, you increased. Okay, and yes, your carbon dioxide pressure still is below, I mean, is above 45 millimeters of mercury. And then you have metabolic alkalosis. Alkalosis, please note, it is above the upper limit of normal, which is 7.45. Okay, this one is due to retention, or you gain or you accumulate bicarbonate, causing an increase in the pH. Okay, disease correlation, excess administration of bicarb, ingestion of bicarbonate producing salts, like lactate, citrate, acetate, and then excessive loss of acids in case of vomiting, nasogastric suctioning, and diuretics. Okay? Metabolic alkalosis. Alkalosis. Okay? You check the pH. It's above 7.45. It's alkalosis. Okay? The carbon dioxide level is normal. The problem is I mean bicarbonate. The problem is bicarbonate, which is 26, above 26 milliequivalent per liter. Okay, this is metabolic in nature. This is metabolic in nature. Okay, how will your body correct? Okay, how will your body correct this acidosis or alkalosis? It will compensate using the other organ, using the lungs. Okay, hypoventilation. Okay, you retain more. You retain more of the acidic component, which is carbon dioxide. Okay, so in compensated metabolic alkalosis, you have the following. Okay, again, when you say compensated, when you say completely compensated, okay, the pH is within the normal range. When you say partially compensated, okay, the pH will go close. Okay, it will go close to the normal one. And then when you say uncompensated, there is no effect. There is no change at all. Anyway, okay, so the pH is above compensated metabolic alkalosis. pH is above 7.45. Alkalosis pa rin naman siya. Okay, increase carbon dioxide tension or pressure, and then increased bicarbonate. This is still the problem. And then you have respiratory alkalosis. Okay, it results from an increased rate of alveolar ventilation, causing excessive elimination of carbon dioxide by the lungs. Okay, you eliminate more carbon dioxide. This is an acidic component, causing an increase in the pH. Okay, this is correlations here. You have salicylates, increased environmental temperature, fever, pulmonary emboli, pulmonary fibrosis, and anxiety. Okay, so let's take a look at these values. Above, the pH is above 7.45, making it alkalosis. Okay, the carbon dioxide pressure is below 35 millimeters of mercury, which is, okay, yes, below the normal value, 35 to 45. And your bicarbonate is within normal. Okay, compensation, it is your body will increase, okay, through excretion of bicarbonate. Okay, your body will somewhat, please note ha, that it is important that the pH should be maintained at this narrow level at 7.35 to 7.45. Why? Because if the pH, if the acidic pH of the blood persists, okay, a lot of reactions will be affected. Okay, anyway, in case of respiratory alkalosis, again, your body will compensate using the kidneys. Okay, respiratory. The body will compensate using the kidneys. So what will it do? The kidneys will excrete more bicarbonate. The kidneys will excrete more bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is a weak base, or it is an alkaline. Okay, so after in cases of compensatory alkalosis, respiratory alkalosis, you have the following values. Okay, pH is still above 7.45. Carbon dioxide levels is decreased, and bicarbonate levels is decreased. Okay, of course, this one is needed to correct your pH. So I guess let's end here. Let's continue some other time. And this has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, laugh often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. And as you move forward, may you always choose curiosity over fear, kindness over convenience, and growth over comfort. Celebrate your small victories. Honor your quiet moments and trust that every step, no matter how uncertain, shapes the story you are meant to tell. The world is wide, your time is precious, and your journey is uniquely yours. So go make it extraordinary. Again, this has been Gael. Thank you. Thank you so much, and see you around.